The Tekken Online Masters tournaments have just ended this weekend, and this was an important tournament for the Tekken community. It took place entirely online, since the pandemic has made physical contact and in-person events difficult. But even so, this raises the question, are online tournaments really a good idea for the fighting game community? Let's answer that with a couple of points. We're all fortunate enough to be living in a world with high-speed internet. Connecting with people is now easier than it ever has been, thanks to high bandwidth and speeds. However, even today, some people are not as privileged with internet, and not all internet connections are the same. To run online tournaments, players will need high-end connections, which does create a barrier of entry for players. Additionally, entering events isn't as straightforward as walking into a venue anymore. You need to have a copy of the game, you need to have a stable internet connection, you need to have power, and you need to coordinate with the organizers. This can prove to be a challenge, since not all of these elements are guaranteed to work flawlessly. Additionally, there's more than just these factors that can limit tournament viability. While many fighting games have released over the past 4 decades, not all of them have been created equally. Since the dawn of online connectivity, we've had games that, while they do offer online functionality, have absolutely terrible online play. This is because of the underlying netcode that these games have. Now, if you haven't been following up on this, fighting games had previously been operating on the traditional delay-based netcode, which meant that no matter how skilled a player is, their inputs will always be delayed because the game has to catch up with the action on screen. Traditional Japanese fighting games find this as the easiest way to implement netcode in their fighting games. But any educated person knows that winning or losing can often come down to a single frame, requiring split-second decisions and execution. That is simply not possible in a delay-based environment. Fortunately, we've had developments in the West of a new kind of netcode called rollback. For those of you that are curious, there are tons of videos out there on the internet that explain what rollback netcode really is. But, as a quick explanation, it basically means that the game can respond to a player input much quicker. Now, Japanese developers have been really hesitant to add this kind of netcode to their games. But fortunately, things are turning around. Even Tekken 7 had this change implemented post-launch, and it wasn't even a pure form of rollback either. However, judging by the success of Guilty Gear Strive, and with KOF 15 announcing native rollback netcode, there's a ray of light on the horizon for online play. Fighting games have thrived over the years because of the sense of community built around each game. Games like Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat all have avid fans who build a sense of camaraderie around their games. And nowhere is this most evident than in games like Super Smash Bros. Melee and Marvel vs. Capcom. These games lived well past their prime and continue to have a strong scene today because of the community aspect of them. However, a major part of the community is the physical presence of members and the interactions that they have. As a fan of fighting games that has played solo almost all his life, I can tell you right now that you really enjoy the game when you go to an arcade and hang around with the players over there. It's what keeps the scene healthy and growing. Sadly, that kind of environment can't really be replicated in online forums or Discord chats. taking fighting games online doesn't have the same feeling and works against the enthusiasm others have for their favorite series. So while it's great to see people stream fighting games online, and it may be fun to see your viewership increasing because of the pandemic, this online-only approach can lead to a degradation of the community. The feeling just isn't there anymore, and it eventually leads to people tuning out in their downtime, and eventually losing interest. Perhaps the most controversial aspect of taking tournaments online is one that we never really had before in an offline setting. Now, in an offline environment, we have two people duking it out in front of us. All their skill, their tricks, their playstyle is on full display in front of us. But what happens when those same players are put in isolation, unable to be viewed by anyone else, and their playstyle starts varying wildly? Can we say for sure that it's the same two people fighting, with no form of unfair advantage or aid whatsoever? Or is there something else going on? Now, we could remove this sort of doubt by requiring players to have their face cam on at all times. However, things are not that simple. Players may not have invested in a face cam, they may face some technical issues with them, and it does end up going beyond their privacy, which is a major concern. I don't really have a solution for this new issue that I am in no way implying is currently happening. But the fact remains that we need a better standard for tracking online tournaments if we want them to exist, and making sure everything is authentic. Fighting games are fun for a variety of reasons, and offline tournaments contribute heavily towards that enjoyment. It's unfortunate that we have had to change up our way of playing because of unforeseen circumstances. But we're all eagerly awaiting the day when we can finally go back to meeting in person, throwing down, and holding in-person events in our neighborhoods. While online tournaments are a great initiative for the time being, it's not the best case scenario for a lot of players. If we want fighting games to continue thriving, we need to be part of our local community and show up. So head on down to your local arcade or tournament whenever you get the chance. Look for opportunities to continue the game in person. Practice the best precautions and fight face to face with your rivals. Because if fighting games have taught us anything, it's that we need to fight things head on, face to face, and always be safe. What are your thoughts on online tournaments? Are you satisfied with them, or would you like to see a change and go back to normal offline events? Let me know down in the comments below. This is Silver Fox. Thank you so much for watching.